Hello and welcome to Talking Tullahoma, a weekly podcast recapping the week's news, talking to the newsmakers, and looking ahead to upcoming events. I'm Kelly Lepchinsky, and today I'm talking to Tullahoma Women's Club membership chair Renee Lane about the club's upcoming attic sale. After the interview, stay tuned to hear about events that are on tap in the weeks ahead. But first, here's a look back at the week ending Friday, October 3rd. Now, first up, the week got off to a roaring start last Saturday with the 8th annual Oktoberfest at South Jackson. I stopped by to enjoy a bit of the festivities and enjoyed meeting several of you at that event. But when the work week started, well, things became considerably more serious. The Tullahoma school system made the news last week when criminal justice teacher Monica Blake Beasley received a permanent reprimand. That reprimand came after she made a comment about a controversial national figure on a social media platform. Now, because that news is already more than a week old, I'll refer you to the Tullahoma News for the full story. But in short, some people were concerned that the teacher, a woman of color, had used her personal platform to make statements against a national figure who she called racist and homophobic. That group, a little more than a dozen people, spoke out at a recent school board meeting. Now, some were there to defend her, but others wanted to see her fired. The school district's attorney got involved, and the right to your private political speech won the day, with some degree of help from lifelong Republican Susan Harris. Harris is the one who pointed out that it is exactly that right to free speech that the national figure was most adamant about protecting. Now, yes, the figure was Charlie Kirk. Now, in this day of algorithms and cultivated sound bites, we are all fed wildly different information about the same people and events. So opinions about Kirk are also wildly different. But his stance on race relations seemed pretty clear, and so was Blake Beasley's response to that stance. And she did receive a reprimand for it. But that did not satisfy those who had wanted to see her fired. So this week, their sights were reset on a picture of the teacher in her classroom. Now, in that classroom, there is a progress flag affixed to the wall. And if you're not familiar with that particular flag, it is considered to be all-inclusive. It represents the diversity of students, friends, and neighbors who are black, brown, white, gay, transgendered, or were born with traits from both sexes. Yes, there is a rainbow, but there's also a triangle of pink, teal, black, brown, and white. And the timing of the new complaint is notable because as of this month, a flag like that, one that says, "We see all of you and we look forward to the future together," can no longer be flown in Coffee County schools. Now, at the September 8th meeting of the County School Board, Director Scott Hargrove recommended a policy revision that would allow only the state flag and the American flag to be displayed on school grounds, including classrooms. The board voted for that revision unanimously in its first and final reading, despite the fact that that item was not on the posted agenda. Now, Tullahoma schools are not governed by the county school system, but the group that's concerned about Blake Beasley's classroom wants Tullahoma to follow suit with a similar policy, a policy that appears to have been based on proposed legislation that has failed at the state level twice. And here's something worth noting. If the Red Raiders have a flag similar to the one the Wildcats carry out onto the football field, it could be banned now as well. There are exceptions for state, school, and military flags, but solely for educational purposes within an adopted curriculum. Now, all other personal or cultural flags are now prohibited, so under the rule of the new policy, the band's flag corps should be safe. Band is considered part of the academic curriculum, but the high school football team is not. Now, on Tuesday, the Tullahoma Utilities Authority welcomed local realtor Darrell Welsh to the board of directors. Welsh was appointed by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen last month to fill the vacancy left by J.T. Northcutt, who reached the end of his term in August. On Wednesday, Welch and several other members of the board helped to welcome the community to the TUA grounds for the annual Public Power Week celebration. The midday celebration included many demonstrations of the hard work that TUA linemen perform every day to keep power flowing to our homes and businesses. And because TUA is a public power utility, it is owned by you, the ratepayer, not by shareholders. And that means you're getting some of the lowest rates, not only in the state of Tennessee, but also in the nation. Remember that the next time a cold front comes through. Now, also on Wednesday, a new collective bargaining agreement went into effect at Arnold Air Force Base. On September 18th, after a month of negotiation, the Air Engineering Metal Trades Council ratified an agreement with the test operations and sustainment contractor, Beyond New Horizons. The Trades Council represents more than 700 skilled professionals at Arnold, and the new agreement will ensure work stability through the next 5 years, though limited terms can be renegotiated after the first 3 years. Now, on Thursday night, after this podcast goes live, the city of Tullahoma will host a special called meeting, and the urgency of the meeting raises more questions than the agenda does. The board is scheduled to meet on the second and fourth Monday of each month, which means the next regularly scheduled meeting would be held on October 13th. So what's on the agenda that has to be addressed on a random Thursday a week and a half ahead of schedule? Well, here are some of the action items tonight. An ordinance to amend the personnel policies of the city to enact a new section on abusive conduct prevention. There are also 2 requests to authorize the city attorney or other staff to seek outside help for IT and HR services. Now, the search for HR services is notable in that it comes after the city settled a $5 million lawsuit brought by the former HR director. Director Costa Bryce had served the city for 26 years before the board told her that her position had been eliminated because it was no longer needed. Well, the item on tonight's agenda, however, seems to suggest otherwise. The city is seeking an outside firm to conduct performance reviews, handle employee grievances, and update or enforce personnel policies. Now, based on the expediency of a special called meeting, it appears that there's a personnel problem on the city staff, and there's no qualified HR director to enforce or expand personnel policy. I'll be behind the camera this evening as Light Tube brings you coverage of that special called meeting live on Channel 6 and on YouTube. Just look for TUA Light Tube. And if you're listening to this podcast after Thursday night, October 2nd, you can find all city board meetings, including this one, on YouTube. Now, if we're talking about where to find things, you can find all sorts of interesting items this month at the GFWC Tullahoma Women's Club annual attic sale. On Tuesday, I sat down with membership chair Renee Lane to find out more.
The attic sale takes place each fall, and this year it is October 17th and 18th. And it is a conglomeration of not only items that are donated by the Tullahoma Women's Club members, but also members of the community will drop off items for donation. So it becomes, a really neat community event. The event, the money that we raise, we put back into the community. This year, our main focus is children's advocacy of Coffee County.
Okay.
So I think it's going to be a very good group to work with.
All right, full disclosure, my mother was president of the Women's Club for a long time and even served at the state level. So I actually know more about this event than I probably should to be able to ask intelligent questions about it. So you mentioned that the community comes out and helps donate items, and this happens year after year after year. So
Absolutely.
For you to put the work and the effort into this attic sale, and like I said, I've seen it done. I know there's work that goes into the sale.
Yeah.
It must actually generate some funds that are worth doing it over and over again.
Absolutely. It is the only fundraiser that we currently do throughout the year. So this fundraiser basically gives us the ability to help groups every single month of the year.
I know this is your only fundraiser, but you also do like table collections. There are other
Sure.
ways that money come in
Absolutely.
for those throughout the year, right? So we don't want to feel like we're saying Children's Advocacy Center, you're not getting all of it.
No, it is just going to be our primary. And last year we had Head Start and
I think Imagination Library
Imagination
was in there,
Library
yeah.
was the other, yeah. So we had those last year. So we try to have something every year to be kind of focused on when we're doing it, but it is throughout the year. There'll be for other things like Haven of Hope and the Hotel Ministries in Manchester. So there's a lot of other things that we collect and work with throughout the year.
Now, I realize this is a sidebar from your event that we're talking about, but because you just mentioned the Hotel Ministry, and most people haven't heard of that yet. So can you just sort of fill us in on what that is? It doesn't have to be long, but what is that?
Sure. The Hotel Ministries, a couple ladies in the Manchester area started it, and it's to give basic needs to the people that are homeless that are living in the hotels. And there are a couple hotels, I believe there's 3 hotels right now that are being used in the Manchester area for these unhomed people. And what we do is we give them Pampers, toothpaste, just things that are needed for everyday living. And the Hotel Ministries, they also feed them, I believe it's twice a week. They're also making food for them as well. So it's been a very beneficial thing, and I have been there myself, so I've been able to not only donate to it, but witness it.
I gotcha. Well, see, I hadn't heard of it until last year's. It was a beneficiary of some funds from the Women's
Yes, it
Club,
was.
and I had not heard of that yet, and it had never occurred to me that housing the unhoused in a hotel still leaves them without things like kitchens. I mean, you've
Yeah.
got a bedroom and a bathroom, but feeding yourself is still going to be a challenge. So,
And because they're paying for this room, it takes a lot of their funds.
Yeah.
I don't want to say all of their funds, but most of their funds
Yeah.
are used.
hotels
just-
aren't cheap to start with.
It's
and
not.
If it's your rent.
Yeah, so their rent is fairly high, and they don't have a way to cook, and they just don't have a lot of the basic needs.
Okay. Well, thank you for going on that sidebar with me, because I didn't want to throw out a ministry that a lot of people hadn't heard
Sure.
of and not explain it. But coming back to the Women's Club and this attic sale. Now, I think it was last year, maybe the year before. I don't know who the donor was, but you ended up with tools. This was a big
Yes.
tool sale, and usually this event doesn't have quite so much for the men.
Yes.
Now, do we have anything that really came up or stands out this year, or are we still getting donations and sorting through?
We are still getting donations, but we do have a few things that will be specific for the men. One of the things that I can think of very quickly is a tile saw, and I know there's a couple other saws in there as well. But the tile saw, because it sounds kind of specialized, but if you can pick one up at something like the attic sale and not have to buy it full price, what a savings when you're trying to do a large project.
Absolutely. So then I guess that can lead us to our next thought here. How do you guys price the stuff that gets brought into you? What are you looking at?
Yeah, that is actually kind of part of the hard part.
Yes.
Is trying to come up with pricing, because we want to make it fair for the people that come in, but it is also, like I said, our only fundraiser, and because the money is being used for us as a nonprofit, we are trying to make money for the year, and sometimes we'll look at eBay and then we'll just cut it down from that, or somebody that had bought one at another sale or something, and they'll say, I spent this, and we can just cut it down from that, because we want to make sure that people come in and they walk out with what they want.
Nice.
That is definitely the goal.
Now, I have to tell this story, and I've told this on this program before when it was televised, but now we're reaching kind of a different audience through the podcast. So I have to tell you, I went to one of these sales one year when my mother was still in the club, and I found this cute little pottery, like a bud vase, and it just spoke to me. I said, I'm getting that. I got up to the checkout counter with my other things. I'd picked up a number of things, and my mother was working at the counter that day. She's like, Kelly, what? I brought that. I guess that's why it drew me.
It did.
But you just don't know what you're going to find when you
Yeah.
go to the sale. It could be housewares, it could be clothing. Do you have a lot of clothing coming in this year?
We have a boutique area this year, which is going to be fairly unique, because we did the boutique many years ago, but we got a little boutique area, and we're going to have some dresses and some finer clothing in that, and of course outerwear, gloves, things like that we have every year. So we'll still have that, but we will have a little boutique area. We've got a lot of our jewelry will be in that boutique area as well. We've got more jewelry this year I think, than we've ever had. So I think that the boutique area is going to draw in a lot of people also.
Absolutely. Now, one thing we haven't mentioned, and we hope that people already know, is the Tullahoma Women's Club meets and hosts this sale at the clubhouse,
Yes.
which is on Wilson Avenue. Now, there's been a lot of construction over in that area.
Yes.
So how is that affecting preparation?
The construction has been difficult for everybody, not just the Women's Club, but for everybody that goes up and down Wilson Avenue. The construction has been very difficult. We're at a point now where we have both sides of our parking lot back open, so we'll be able to have adequate parking on both sides again. So I do believe that it'll be fine being able to park, but we do have to exercise patience in getting in and out of there because they are still working on it.
Okay. And I'll just make a note, too, that now both, and I don't know how this happened, I don't think this has always been true, both women's clubs are now using that same clubhouse. The Centennial and the Tullahoma Women's Club are using that same location, and that location becomes available for events. It's a rental venue that people don't often think of.
Correct. And we're fortunate. It does get rented quite a bit, not only by the Centennial Women's Club, but by a lot of others that are looking for an area for baby showers, bridal showers, birthday parties. We have some families that prefer to use it for their holiday dinners instead of their home. So I know in the last couple of years we've had that as well. So it does get rented quite often, which again helps us because as a nonprofit, it's kind of hard to get enough funds to be able to make the year last.
Absolutely, and it's worth mentioning that as event centers go, this one is actually a house. It was a house on Residential Place on Wilson Avenue. So you're getting full kitchen, full bathrooms, full living space.
Correct.
So as opposed to, and there's nothing wrong with event space depending on what you need that doesn't have all of that.
Yeah.
But if it is something like Christmas dinner where you would like to have an oven, it's there.
It is. And I think we can get 125 people in the large meeting room. So there's a lot of room for them to set up tables. And we've had some beautiful events that when I see the pictures from the events, it's just absolutely gorgeous on how some people have decorated in there. But it is a large area, men and women's restrooms, and obviously the full kitchen.
Okay. So now we've said the dates, we've said the place.
Yes.
What are the times for this event?
On the 17th, which is a Friday, it is from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. And then on Saturday, it is 8 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Okay. All right. Now, the last thing I'm going to ask you about is membership.
Yes.
When is the building open if somebody is interested, not just in this attic sale, but in being a member of the Women's Club, of meeting other people or getting involved or helping all of these places that you said the money goes to?
Right.
How do they get involved?
It's exciting. We've had several new members, and I'm membership chair, so I get very excited about talking about membership. If somebody would like to join, they can reach out to us via Facebook or can reach out to me personally, and I would be happy to talk to them and see if they're a good fit for our membership.
Wonderful.
You know, the Women's Club has grown a little bit, and I think that it's very important in this area that the Women's Club continues because we do have a lot of need in Coffee and surrounding counties.
The Tullahoma Women's Club was founded to meet those needs in 1899, making it the oldest service organization in the city. Now, the Rotary Club of Tullahoma has made that claim before, but that club wasn't chartered until 1922. And here's a fun bit of local history. Women's clubs came into existence because women weren't allowed to join the other service organizations like the Rotary or the Kiwanis clubs. Now, if you're thinking, well, sure, that makes sense given those dates. We were just talking about the end of the Victorian era or the Roaring Twenties. Well, hold on to your hats. Some of the younger ones won't remember this, and they might not even know it. But the watershed votes to allow women into these organizations that were previously male-only didn't happen until the late 1980s. Kiwanis opened membership to women in 1987, and Rotary voted to admit women in 1989. Now, the Tullahoma Rotary Club inducted its first female member, Fran Markham, 2 years later in 1991. The first female president didn't come around until Diane Bryant won the seat in 2003. Now, without intending to, I seem to have stumbled onto the theme of inclusion today, from flags in the schools to women in service organizations. So it's fitting that the book that Reba Walters is sharing with us this week touches on the same themes. Angeline Boulley's 2021 debut novel, Firekeeper's Daughter, follows a biracial young woman who witnesses her friend's murder and then becomes involved in its investigation.
The main character is a young woman who's just graduated from high school. She has an interesting background in that her mother was from a prominent white family in Sault Ste. Marie. She became pregnant with an Indian man, and he left her before she even had the baby. He didn't stick with her for various reasons which get explained in the story. But so she's part Indian, half Indian, but her grandparents never quite accepted that fact. And yet she had relatives on her father's side who made sure that she saw her father, and even her mother was in on this. She said, you have to have connection with your dad and his culture. So all her life she had really strong influences from both sides of her family, especially one aunt who always was there for her and who she could come to with her questions about, what does it mean that I'm Ojibwe? Like, how should I be living this? That's where she came from. And then what she ended up doing was helping to solve a murder, some deaths in her community, especially among high schoolers who were mostly athletes. She herself was a hockey player, and she knew all the hockey players. Her brother was a hockey player. But they had a meth problem in the community. And the story really is about how they solved this mystery of where the meth was coming from. Mm-hmm. And interestingly, the connection to adults here was really intense around the sports thing, because hockey was everything to the town.
Oh, yeah, Michigan. Oh, yeah.
And so there were some adults who were a little overinvested in it, mm-hmm. and ended up making money through purchasing meth, and were trying to, and recruited some kids to help them market it to the other kids.
Oh, wow.
So it's a very sad story in that regard. But it was, as far as the Daunis, the main character, and her friend Lily being at the age they were at that point where you start to learn that people aren't always who they seem to be, and you start evaluating adults in a different way. Mm-hmm. You see them through a little bit different lens than your family might have told you about them,
right.
What they told you. So I loved that piece of it, because I think that's a really interesting time of life, and deciding, are you going to remain close with your family, or you're going to leave? All those big decisions were being made by the characters of her in her age group in the book. Also, another piece in that was beautifully written about was the young people's connection to their grandparents, and also other aunts, but people of another generation, that even 2 generations ahead of them. And they weren't made to go do these things. They were just doing them. Like when her grandmother had a stroke and was dying, she went every morning to see her before school on her own. And I was just touched by that, because I know in my own family, you sort of experienced that even grandchildren don't seem to connect with their grandparents sometimes. And it's been kind of a strange thing to have happen. So to see this, the way that it happened in this culture, was really beautiful to read about. So I found it to be a really good read. It's pretty hefty sized book, but it reads very quickly. And once you get started in it, you don't want to put it down.
Nice.
So I highly recommend this one.
She's not alone. The year that Firekeeper's Daughter was released, Time magazine named it one of the best young adult books of all time. Not bad for a debut novel. And speaking of debuts, we've got some new events lined up for you in the weeks ahead. Here's a look at what's happening. Join the Duck River Watershed Society at Common John Brewing Company on Friday, October 10th to enjoy craft beer, pub food, and live entertainment while learning more about the society and its mission from 4 to 6. Stick around afterward for a special free performance by the Indiana-based rock band The Cold Stairs, starting at 6:30. The annual Jack Daniel's Invitational Barbecue returns to Lynchburg next weekend. There's a grilling contest and a parade through the Lynchburg Square on Friday the 10th, and then Saturday the 11th brings all the World Championship contests, all featuring the grand champions of other barbecue competitions from all over the U.S. Activities are held all day long in Wiseman Park. The Highland Rim chapter of the Compassionate Friends will hold its Walk to Remember Our Children at the Church of Christ at Cedar Lane on Sunday the 12th. Those who have lost a child, grandchild, or sibling are invited to honor their loved one at this walk. Be sure to bring a large photo of your child, and if you walked last year, remember to wear your t-shirt. The event begins at 2 and ends with a potluck. Friends and family are welcome. For more information, call 455-2964. The GFWC Centennial Women's Club is preparing for its annual Bunko for Breast Cancer event at Lakewood Golf and Country Club. The easy-to-learn dice game is set to begin at 6:30 on Thursday, October 30th, but seating is limited. $40 tickets are available now. Snacks and prizes will be available, and proceeds benefit the Multi-County Cancer Support Network. Get your ticket from any club member or contact Renee Keene at 607-0025. And that's what's happening. Thank you so much for joining me for this edition of Talking Tullahoma. If you've got a story or an event that you'd like to share on the podcast, call and leave me a message at 571-7186 or email news@lighttube.net. I'll be back soon with more of what makes Tullahoma tick. Until then, you can listen to Talking Tullahoma on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. New episodes drop on Thursdays. Please rate and review. For the video version, follow us on YouTube. Just search for TUA LightTube. I'm Kelly Lepchinsky. Catch you next week.